Welcome back, Refiners. It's Miscellaneous Gab here, back with another Theory Tuesday / Monday / whatever day it is. Now, I skipped my last week's theory video in favor of talking about my Ricken book. So if you haven't checked out the UUR, go check that out. But this last episode, there are so many theories that I want to discuss. So some of these are things I've been thinking about. Some of these are the theories I've been reading in the comments. So buckle up, grab a waffle, get settled, and let's get into it. While I suspect that there will be questions and mysteries at the end of this season, I do hope some of our questions will be answered. So starting off strong, this is something that I discussed in my live, and that's, has Ricken been inside of Lumon? So in episode 5, Trojan's Horse, we hear Devon reading a passage from Ricken's new Any modified book after the visit from Natalie.
The workers were diligent, focused on the task at hand. Pleasantly surprised, I noticed that not a single worker had a watch.
In this, he talks about the clock on the wall and the fact that none of the innies wear watches. Of course, one might think that Natalie told him what to say, that Lumon is controlling the narrative, but I also wonder if he truly is an author of integrity, which that is up in the air. Was he invited onto the severed floor to actually observe innies in their natural habitat? Now, this is going to be important if one of my other theories comes true. The next theory is kind of piggybacking off of something I've talked about plenty of times on this channel, which is, are the innies refining themselves? Now, I rewatched a couple episodes from season 1, including season 1, episode 5, The Grim Barbarity of Optics and Design. In this episode, Grainer brings Petey's chip back to Cobell after she saws it out of his brain. He says,
"Ran the diagnostics.
yeah.
Full synaptic coupling. Peter Kilmer's memory was reintegrated. You were right, Harmony. We should celebrate."
Remember when Cobell brought this up previously and the board basically laughed in her face and said that reintegration is not possible? When Grainer hands her this chip back, he says,
"We should celebrate."
Why would they celebrate if this wasn't some huge thing that Lumon wants to be able to do? We don't know if Harmony Cobell went and immediately told the board. Grainer was a little bit surprised that she hadn't told the board. She tells Grainer to go find out who did this so that she can present the information to the board all at once. And we know that Grainer met his demise soon after that, so maybe he never found out. Has this been a secret that Harmony has been keeping with her? Remember, she has the chip. Or has she spoken to the board about Petey's reintegration? Maybe with this new news that reintegration is possible, that has really been what started Cold Harbor. Maybe Mark wasn't essential previously, but maybe now he is. Maybe Cold Harbor is about reintegrating a human brain versus just technology and data. We also know that Mark at the beginning of season 1 wasn't working on Cold Harbor. Maybe Mark is refining Gemma and this will be the first successful Lumon reintegration. And then that might lead to the innies actually refining themselves. Remember that when Dylan is in the command room, we do see a command for Beehive. Now, one of my commenters, Cass is Twisted, has brought up that maybe the goal is to use this Beehive command to actually create a hive mind of all the people. Remember, Jane Egan said in the finale of season 1 that he hopes one day everybody has a chip in their brain. So maybe one of Lumon's plans isn't maybe necessarily to resurrect Kier, but to control the minds of everyone, to spread the balanced tempers, the good word of Kier to the entire world and control as many people as possible with the Beehive command, assuming that their innies have refined themselves and their innie personas that are more pure and indoctrinated can actually take over their outie personas. The next thing I've been very eager to theorize about are Burt's true intentions. Now, in my last video, I talked a lot about how Burt is most definitely a philanderer and a cheater, but I think that his scoundrelness goes a lot further. Fields is concerned that Burt's outie won't go to heaven because of the crimes that he's committed in his life. Now, many have discussed that if they are indeed Christians, why couldn't Burt repent? Go the old-fashioned way, no need to sever, pray for Christ for forgiveness, do better next time, and you'll get into heaven. Now, with the name Attila, one can wonder, are there things that maybe will automatically send you to hell, that no amount of repentance, that no amount of praying to Jesus will help save your soul? people. The name Attila, of course, is a reference to Attila the Hun, one of the most notorious and barbaric rulers who is responsible for so many deaths. Are mass murderers, evil dictators, people like that, even if they were to pray to Jesus Christ at the 11th hour of their life on their deathbed, can we confidently say that they wouldn't be up there in heaven with you and me, maybe people who do the right thing? I would think that Burt is committed to being a bad person. He knows he's a bad person, which means he's done something in his past that has made it impossible for him to go to heaven. One of you eagle-eyed commenters pointed out that in the last episode, we see a pineapple in the background of the shot when Fields first meets Irving. Does this mean that Milchick has been here to convince Burt to do something for him? I believe that Burt invited Irving over so that Mr. Drummond would be able to access his way into his home and figure out what he's up to. I also believe that Irving is working with Regabhi, or the people that Regabhi is working with, and I think that Mr. Drummond is now in charge of figuring out who these people are and what this movement is about. I know it looks like Mr. Drummond has a roll of keys that maybe belongs to all of the people that live in Kier housing, but maybe some people think that Burt grabbed the keys out of Irving's jacket pocket when he took Irving's jacket. Another thing to note is the time discrepancy. So Fields said the nickname Attila came about 20 years ago. He knows this because they were having dinner with his quote Lumon partner. Burt says it was 10 years ago because the first Severed office opened 12 years ago. Burt made a point to talk this over with Irving.
It's fuzzy, like saying I worked at Lumon 20 years ago, which is of course before Severance even existed.
I believe that the mention of partner, right? That feels a little bit like business partner. So what if Burt was involved with Lumon 20 years ago? What if Lumon actually severed people 20 years ago as a part of covert operation to kind of test the dynamics of a severed floor? And what if they didn't tell the public about it? Now, Cass is Twisted brought this to my attention, and I did go back and rewatch parts of season 1, and I do believe this theory is true. What if 20 years ago there really was a massacre between MDR and OND? And what if Burt was leading that massacre? What if, like his namesake Attila, he was massacring people because either the departments got too close and they sort of started to actually rise up against Lumon and other departments? Or what if something went wrong with the chips, they needed to wipe it clean and start over? What if Burt has never actually been severed, but has always been working for Lumon and has been with the company for a very long time?
If you came here to see me, then why are you in the conference room? Why not come right to the office?
What if he's like Helly in a way, where he either got severed or goes onto the severed floor to sort of Glockschuppen people down there? We know he's lied to Irving. Even his innie has lied to Irving about the size of the department. I think this would explain a lot of the lighting around Burt's face. Now, his face looks very lit evilly, like Sith level of lighting. And remember, like they say, drunk words are sober thoughts. So as Fields continued to drink that night, he had less and less of a filter. I truly think this may have been Burt actually involved working for the company at a higher level. Now, let's talk a little bit about a theory or prediction for Mark. This episode that's coming is called Chikhai, edit for pronunciation, Bardo. Bardo is super interesting. It's this idea in Tibetan Buddhism, this state between life and death. Oddly enough, it was also my creative writing blog that I started in college called The Bardo Brain, because I was so obsessed with this idea and this topic. Due to Mark's integration, he is going to enter some transitory state between life and death, and we might be getting some flashbacks or some insights where he actually is going back, recalling all of his memories. We're getting answers to Gemma's death. I do hope our boy survives. Ultimately, Mark might not make it out of all of this in one piece. I don't think there's going to be a happy ending for Mark. One theory I want to discuss that somebody mentioned is Mark refining out his feelings for Gemma. Is that why he seems to care less and less about Miss Casey as time goes on? I don't necessarily think he's refining out his feelings for Gemma and Miss Casey, but this did bring up an interesting point, which is that if they truly do want to balance the tempers, if the innies are refining people or even refining themselves, and they potentially do want to instigate the beehive protocol, what does the society with balanced tempers look like? We see Natalie, who is almost robotic in her movements, this idea of the perfect corporate cult member. Mr. Drummond, who is cool as a cucumber despite his frolic tattoo. Milchick, we've seen a little cracks at the edges. Same thing with Kobelvig over the seasons, but ultimately, what does the perfect perfect, balanced tempers look like? Do they not really care about love? Now, this is piggybacking on one of my earlier theories, which is Regabhi might be a bad person. Something really solidified this in this last episode. When Mark starts to have flashbacks in and out of Lumon, he's in the basement, he's getting his nosebleed checked out. Regabhi says,
I don't know.
Do you remember a hallway? A black hallway?
I remember.
now, Mark and Regabhi have never talked about the exports hallway before. Remember, this has been Irving's side quest, not necessarily Mark's side quest until most recently. Some of you have commented that maybe Regabhi works for Lumon's competition, and this is truly corporate espionage using people. Both Regabhi and Irving are obsessed with the dark hallway. Regabhi wants Mark to find this dark hallway, and Irving wants his innie to find this dark hallway. What if Irving and Regabhi are working for the same organization? Our boy Seth brought off an interesting theory. This episode has me thinking Severance is supposed to be punishment. The severed floor is hell. Maybe Mark is responsible for Gemma's car accident. Maybe he was drunk. Does Cobell feel responsible for her own mother's death? And that's what drives her. The religious aspect of this makes me think that maybe even Helly was sent there herself by Father as punishment. Maybe Irving did something unforgivable in the eyes of Lumon while in the armed forces. Maybe Cold Harbor isn't Gemma at all, but Mark. Maybe it's when they are done, quote, correcting Mark, his new form, that it hits 100%. Love this thought, love this line of thinking. Cobelvig hasn't been in anything in the last 3 episodes. Has Lumon tried to kill her, make her car slip on some black ice into the water? Rewatching parts of season 1, it makes me think through like just how much of a side quest Harmony Cobell was on. Even having Miss Casey monitor Helly after her hanging attempt. Milchick even says, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm trying something new. Keep this between us." The last theory I have, will Lumon divide and pit Devon and Ricken against each other? In the last episode, we see that Mark kind of is edging out Devon a little bit. Meanwhile, she has alienated herself a little bit from Ricken and is disappointed in him selling his soul for a few bucks from Lumon. She talks about that rich, hot lady from baby camp and how maybe she should go find her. Will Devon go off on her own side quest to try to do some investigating as Ricken is maybe brought down to the severed floor or is in Lumon's pocket? There's a lot of theories out there that Ricken's current sycophants, Rebecca and company, are previously severed people. What happens if they have millions of copies, millions of severed people who all look to Ricken as this new age version of Kier? Now, the last thing I want to bring up that someone brought up because of my dog in the last episode is, where was Radar when Irving left? Now, I kind of get the idea that Irving is a bit of a homebody. He doesn't leave very often. When Mr. Drummond was going to his apartment, and if he hurt Radar, we ride at dawn. Mr. Drummond's got to go the same way as Grainer. All right, those are the main things I'm thinking about. Again, I can't wait for Thursday. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned. I'll also be releasing a White Lotus episode. And guys, don't worry, even when Severance is over, I've decided I have some very special Severance videos post end of season 2 that I'm going to do. Thank you to all of my paid Patreon members who have joined and supported me. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Waffle Party VIPs, my top tier members, including 2 new members, Daniel Ariano, Bo Dierker. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sounds a lot like Dieter. Suspicious. Are you him? Also, Matt Winberry, welcome to the crew. Jim Rodney, Chris Bezeski, Mr. Vaca, and Davis Crushing. You guys are so amazing. I appreciate you so much. Thank you to everybody else who supports me as a paid member on Patreon. Make sure you check out my other Severance videos in the meantime. See you in a couple days. Work hard, eat your Christmas mints, enjoy your perks, and don't get severed. Bye.